Okay, we're ready to go.
Okay, ready to rock.
Yeah. Podium set.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Toby Sullivan. I'm the Executive Director of the Kodiak Maritime Museum, and it is my pleasure to present this exhibit, Waterhaul, which these art pieces on the commercial fishing industry kind of subject matter were produced by an artist named Catie Bursch. She lives in Homer. She cannot be here today. She had some knee surgery. So we, instead of Catie, we have Mo Boustern, who knows Catie, knows the art, knows the Maritime Museum, and knows Kodiak. And so I'm going to have Mo take it from here. Come on up.
Thanks, Toby. Thank you so much for running over from the pancake breakfast and coming to our talk. The talk's going to cover 3 areas. We're going to talk about the artist a little bit, Catie Bursch, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about her influences on this particular body of work. And then we'll spend the rest of the time talking about the art itself, and there'll be time for you to do some more looking around and asking questions. And I want you to know that I wrote kind of a pompous paper to read to you that I will be using as a reference. And I'm going to read parts of the pompous paper to you, but not all of it. So Catie grew up in Minnesota, in Minnetonka, and she was one of 6 kids in a family, and she had a ton of uncles, and they all went fishing, and none of them took her with her because she was a girl. And when she was maybe around 8 or 10 or 12 years old, they all went to Alaska, worked on the pipeline, and then they did some hunting and trapping and fishing and came home and told her all about it. And when she said she was in 6th grade, she was like, I'm going to Alaska. So in 1981, when she was 21, she came out to Alaska, and she lived in the interior in the winter. She spent a couple winters working for Susan Butcher, the famous musher, taking care of her dogs and, you know, chopping wood for dogs, hauling water for dogs. So she's pretty tough. And then she'd come down to the coast and fish in the summers. And she fished out of Homer, crewing on longline and seiners and drift netters and gillnet boats for about 6 years before she and her husband, Tom, finally bought their own setnet site in Ugashik. She runs a site called Red Dog, and she has achieved the pinnacle of setnet success because her daughters are buying her setnet site. So she will be able to retire, and she will continue doing some of her other work. She's also a scientist, and she's spent about 14 years working for the Kodiak, I see my notes, Bay Research Reserve, and she monitored, so it's a lot like what those women before were presenting. She monitored citizen scientists who were providing information on toxic invasive species, especially toxic shellfish species, which Kodiak knows all about, what we call red tide and things like that. And recently she's developed an environmental education program for Bristol Bay watershed youth, where she teaches kids fishing skills, which she will be doing at her setnet site this summer while her daughters go pick the net. Again, pinnacle of success for setnetters. I know everybody likes that. As she approached retirement, she's going to be 61 this year, and it's notoriously difficult for fishermen to retire, as you may have noticed walking around Comfish. And everybody tries to retire a little bit, and she's just been thinking and thinking about all the things that she's witnessed. In Ugashik, there's a lot of tide. Things can happen very quickly. It's different than Kodiak. The river is pretty unforgiving, and they can lose crew in a moment. And people have to come over from Kodiak in the helicopter to be rescued. And so Catie has been part of many searches for bodies and has never seen one recovered. This show is about grief. It's about loss. It's about the capacity to hold that and to hold the enthusiasm and excitement for life that is part of fishing. It's about knowing you could die at any minute and still going out every day. It's about knowing someone you know is gone and still going out. It's about celebrating the life that you have in this moment. And it's about fun and joy. And Catie was very influenced. She spent much of her time as a scientist doing very intricate, accurate, perfect illustrations for science and for the academic world to see as legitimate. And so in this show, she's really pushing herself to grow in a way of being spontaneous and using found objects and common everyday fishing objects that are part of our lives to create a sort of a search for a deeper spiritual meaning in these fanciful, sometimes sort of humorous, playful works that really are looking at some pretty dark stuff. And in that, she was very influenced by the festival that's celebrated in Mexico and in many parts of Latin America, and also in the United States, called Dia de los Muertos. Raise your hand if you've been to Mexico and you've seen the cute skeletons. And it's important to remember, and this was the part that I wanted to, that was part of my Pampas paper that I wanted to remind you, that it has indigenous roots. And there's an indigenous Chicano professor named Curly Tlapoyawa, and he's an archaeologist and a filmmaker and a founder of the Chimay Institute of Mesoamerican Arts. And what he says about this is, long before the arrival of Europeans, indigenous Mesoamerican traditions of honoring the dead were celebrated with two specific feasts, the Feast of the Dead and the Great Feast of the Dead. The feasts were celebrated in early August through mid-September. These celebrations were dedicated to honoring the dead through song, dance, and offerings of food and drink. Altars and burials were adorned with marigolds, a sacred flower thought to attract the spirits so that they may enjoy the offerings left in their memory. Today, these celebrations have been blended with Catholic traditions and take place on All Saints' Day and All Souls' Day. Many think that these two feasts were absorbed into All Hallowtide, All Saints' Day and All Souls' Day, under the direction of the Catholic Church, as these Christian holidays also involve honoring the dead. But the writings of Diego Duran from that time, he researched it, and it's in these little codexes that are really cool and illustrated and hard to read. They revealed that these Mesoamerican feasts were not moved under the direction of the Catholic priests, but were hidden within the feasts of All Saints' Day and All Souls' Day by the indigenous people themselves. This subversive act of resistance was intended to fool the Catholic priests into thinking that the Mesoamericans had indeed submitted to Christianity. So his request was just that people know that history. And other traditions involved, in addition to making little scenes, are altars and visiting the graves of your beloved dead and decorating them and making feasts and sharing. And you can go see Coco or the Book of Life, and it's awesome to see these films lifted up, especially at a time when so many of us do need to reconnect with ways to live with death, especially after the last 2 years that we've had and the future that we may be coming into. And connecting with ritual around grief is deeply important to the human experience. And Catie's work, when we work with our hands to move grief through, can shift that grief into a place where we can hold it together rather than just trying alone to carry it. One of the things that, and she's worked with skeletons for a long time. Some of the first art she's made were prints that she made of skeletons in rain gear. So when she encountered these influences, it was like meeting herself in a way. And she grew up Catholic, and her mom always had a Child of Prague around, which is like the super fancy dressed up kid in a weird, just Google Child of Prague. And if I had a PowerPoint, you would see like the flash of the icon up. But we invite you to really interact with the pieces in terms of looking at them. They're very fragile, and we know you want to touch them. Don't even breathe on them, because we'll have to readjust them. And they are going to be moved to the Kodiak Island Brewery. So if you do live here, you'll be able to have a beer with these beautiful dead and fill your heart and soul with joy and laugh with them and buy them a beer and enjoy them and know that one day you will be doing that. And this whole thing is also an homage to the salmon industry itself, which is always changing. But with the way things are going, we see the writing on the wall, and we know it's not going to be like this forever. We're not going to be using massive amounts of fossil fuels to catch massive amounts of salmon. We don't know what's coming. And that's part of the mystery of being alive. And that mystery extends beyond the veil as well. So thank you for coming. And now I'm going to shift to the third part of the talk. It was so different than my pompous speech. But I think I got it all in there, Eva, did I? Yeah. All right, good. So I'm going to go around the room and talk about the different pieces. And if you want to follow me and come and stand around, we can do that. Unfortunately, I don't think we'll be able to bring the live stream with us, although Patrick may be able to come up with some sort of AV magic. So,
I think so.
okay, great.
I'll do my best here.
We'll start with this one, which you can see it's in a fish box. These totes get stacked and can carry gear and stuff. It's called Lower Unit. And I'll just read you it. And you can visit the Bunnell. You can visit the Bunnell Arts Center website in which is a longstanding arts place in gallery in Homer. And they have Catie's 30-minute talk and the presentation of the art. And there are a few pieces that are not included in the show that you'll be able to see if you visit the website. But these notes are from Catie herself. So you will see the humor and practicality and science of this woman who is amazing. And I wish she could be here. But she says, this gray tote that is about as long as a salmon, super convenient containers. They have lower units between their legs. This is about bravado and bragging in Bristol Bay. Everybody's got a big boat. Everybody catches lots of fish and they have to tell everybody about that all the time on the docks. So it gets a little old sometimes, especially as a woman, but I kind of get a kick out of it too. And you can see she's got the fish underneath and here's the net and they're all standing around. And here we are with, I guess we're on the boat. I don't know. There's a little wheel there. This one has a light inside. They're on the dock. Okay, I don't know what that, well.
Those are net bags.
Those are the net bags behind them, labeled knack. Yeah, we'll ask her about it. Yeah, well, this guy back here. Catie, if you're listening. Moving on. This is the big reveal. Casey, do you mind providing an assist for me, please? Could you hold this? Okay, come on up. This is pretty cool. This is the only one that's going to do this. This one's called Bucket Icon. And this really speaks to Catie's Catholic upbringing. So you can see it's in a bucket of an oil bucket. And she has the radio. She has your battery and then your EPIRB. And the question is, who do you pray to when your boat's going down? These are important saints to have on your boat, your radio, your EPIRB, and your batteries. You need fresh batteries. So that's what she wants tonight. So you can survive out there on a rough night when you hope everything is working. This is a mix of science, technology, and spirituality. I'm glad you waited for the reveal. It was good, wasn't it? So that's Bucket Icon. And this one is Setnet Ray Tableau. And this is really, she made this one actually after the show in the fall. And she carries these images around in her life and then she wants to get them out. And this is kind of her Setnet site. And it's really, these are the crew pictures up on the wall, because in Bristol Bay, everybody's got their crew shots and there's the view and there's the tide table with the thing scratched out. And it's nice that she's given this guy a meal. And here you never stop hanging your net. And you've got your broom in the corner and your little rainbow with the pilot bread guy. And you can see your net needles here. And this is Catie's science. This represents the graph of the 35 years she's fished in Bristol Bay, like with the catches over the years. And we can see up here, everybody's talking about the big year that we're going to have, like we're going back up. But, you know, she's been there down in the low points too. So that's Setnet Ray Tableau. That's a new word for me. And then we have pressure cooker. Oh no, we have message in a bottle. So you got to come really close to this one. I know you don't want to, but pretend you're children. You see this one. You got to see the message. Why don't you read the message to us?
Water, pumps not keeping up. Taking on water, pumps not keeping up.
Taking on water, pumps not keeping up. So who's got an inReach? You know how you send your inReach message and sometimes you don't get it till the next day? This happened. Someone that Catie is acquainted with sent this message, and the next day his friend got this message on his phone. And this, even though this is funny and playful, it's a real thing that happens. And so it's just like kind of wild. And she said, you know, nowadays we get the text, but maybe long ago, if you were going down, you would have stuffed it in the bottle and thrown that overboard. So did I miss one? Oh yeah, here we go. Flying bridge. So this one is really all about the spirit of the Day of the Dead. One of the things that holds that belief is all of our dead come back to Earth for 1 day or 2 days, like for the 1st and the 2nd of November, and they just want to party. So it's like, what would these guys do if they got to come back? And they're just like, we want to go fishing on the flying bridge. And there was a huge sooty shearwater die-off one year. So she got some wings. We're concerned these aren't legal. So I don't know, say that they're pigeons. I don't know. We're on Facebook. Maybe I shouldn't have said anything. But now we got details here. You notice there's a little broom on the mast. So these guys are highliners, right? Everybody know about the broom on the mast? Yes. No. If you don't know, so catching a broom of fish means you catch 100,000 fish in one season, not pounds, fish. You sweep the season. And you can sometimes hear the older guys saying, like, did you get your broom? Now, a lot of the fishing traditions, people come from the northern countries and there's not a lot of bragging. So you put your broom up on the mast and you don't actually have to talk about it because everybody just sees that you've cleaned up. So that's flying bridge. Good one. I want to do that. And here we have pressure cooker. People in Bristol Bay I have like done a lot of canning on setnet sites in Kodiak when I've had the privilege to do that extreme labor. But she said a long time ago when she was first getting into the Bristol Bay, we talked to our friend Tom Temple about it. And I remember that he said, Bristol Bay, it's a pressure cooker. And so she always remembers that when she's stressed out and riddled with anxiety before the fish come. Lots of things create anxiety for her: knives and tide books and fish tickets and money and blood and rusty engines. The pressure cooker comes from their friends Pete and Wendy. They gave it to her for the art piece, and then she took it across the street to Mark Irvis, the welder, who cut it in half for her. So the marine trades are alive in Homer in the art world. I liked that, but it's a nice cut. It's kind of cool. And, you know, you can always get in there if you need it. This one is called Plenty of Time to Sleep When You're Dead. And I think I just want to mention, like, she sent away to Maine or got online. What did she say? She got those little teeny tiny gill nets online. She just had so much fun collecting all the material because, like I said, was pushing herself to be playful and find materials. And these egg boxes used to hold the row. And when the ships would come over with tons and tons of boxes, and then when they weren't all the way filled up, like they'd fill up their boxes, that was all the capacity that they had, and then they would have all these boxes left over. And instead of taking them on another trip across the Pacific back to Japan, is that my phone?
No, I was just waiting.
Oh, am I getting a fact wrong? Okay. Well, that's, you never know when the wave will come, which is part of the point of the show. So thanks for getting the joke. So they would give the boxes away to the set netters. And so a lot of times, even here on Kodiak, you'll see drawers. And she says the roe gets salted, packed, and shipped to Japan. And they give them to the set netters, or they throw them overboard, and we'd use them for shelves or sock drawers. And she says this is the tough guy phrase, to keep working, plenty of time to sleep when you're dead. Or also people say sleep fast. I don't know if you've heard that. And I'm married to a Scottish fisherman, and his father would always talk about sleep as a woman. And if you tried to take a nap, they would say, "Did you catch her? Did you catch her?" Like as you were, you had to catch your sleep. It was kind of cool. I gotta talk fast here because I see the clock is moving. All right, over here we're in the flounder zone. I love this piece because it's mine. She gifted it to me. And I just love the ecstatic experience of this person. And these are guys looking for someone who's overboard. And he's kind of washing back and forth. He's not part of this anymore. And he's just down here having his experience. It's already happened. And they don't know it yet. And that's what this is about. And it's in an insulated fish box, which, you can tell if you come around the side. Okay, moving on to radio group. And she talks about, I like what she says about this one. Oh gosh, my hair. This is in her artist statement, which we also have if you want to read it or go online. As I said, she thinks radio group drama is hilarious. There's always someone getting kicked out of the radio group and getting brought in, and there's secret channels, and it's kind of like junior high from the outside. She says, of course, I'm a setnetter, kind of making fun of the drift fleet here. So I went down to South Central Radar and I told them, I have this wacky idea. I want to do this thing in a radio. Do you have any old radio casings? Oh yeah, that sounds great, they said. And they pulled out this old single sideband and I took out the guts and made a little therapy group in here. And there they are talking about stuff that they talk about on the radio. So there they are. Do it, guys. You didn't manage to do it when you were alive. So maybe you'll get some redemption. Oh my goodness. So this one is called Go. And one of the things about, as I mentioned in the previous talk, this one's special because these guys are from Kodiak, because the chopper comes from the Kodiak Coast Guard to go to Bristol Bay. And if you look down here, you can see, come on over and look in the halibut tub. These guys are looking for the guys that are lost, and they're lost, but they're also just waiting like fishermen do. And what do fishermen do when they're waiting? They play cribbage, and they're down there below the salmon and they're already gone, which is the other meaning of it, the deeper meaning. And then because she's a scientist, she has to have the chart in there with the tides. So this one's another one that speaks to the toughness of the fisherman, or also the decrepitude. You'll notice there's a pain pill bottle in there and some fish, and he's got his little fish pick. This one's about compressed discs in your back and head injuries and carpal tunnel and replaced hips and all that's, and Vicodin and all that stuff you need to get through the season. This guy slipped. He's trying to get up, but his back hurts a little. He's going to do it. And he's like, put me in, coach. I could still do it. And that's extra tough. And you can see he's in an extra tough box. And he's got his little bandana on, and he's got his little carpal tunnel sleeve. You're going to be that one day if you aren't already. That's also what this show is all about. And is that everybody, Eva? Did I get everyone? So we're just about out of time. We got 7 minutes if anybody wants to ask any questions or make a comment. And Catie really wants you to make your own dioramas. And so just go on out and make your own work and share it and push this out a little further, because we all need ways to be able to process our grief together and be with our people, regardless of what side of life they're on. She is getting a knee replaced. Hence, we ended with this one. She wishes she could. She's been texting, and she was like, even this morning, she was like, I was really thinking maybe I could do it, but I'd have to have like a wheelchair and an ice machine. But she really wants to be able to be mobile later. So, but you can, I don't know if we can send her messages or go find her or get in touch with her through the Bunnell Arts Center in Homer. Or through the Comfish page. Feel free to just like load the page up with comments. It's been really fun enjoying your enjoyment of the work. You're so welcome. Anything else? No questions? Toby.
Just wanted to mention that there's 11 pieces here, and there's two. One is in London and one is in Bristol.
They're called Stowaway and Buoy Girls. One's inside of a cut in half buoy.
Buoy that's cut out, and inside are all these pink fish tickets that have been cut like layers, cut like waves. And there's a little skiff with two women in it, which are her daughters. That big when they couldn't get touched.
EPIRB went off. And you can see that also on the website. And stowaways in one of the boxes that she packs to, you know, when you live in Homer and fish in Bristol Bay, you pack all your stuff in right around this time of year. And then you hope you remember everything. And then you send it up there, and she put a little guy in there, and she just imagines that he's in there eating all the good stuff. Because you just always try and think about the good stuff while you're putting away all the nuts and bolts and everything. It's kind of cool.
So the Maritime Museum, we had funding from Kodiak Area Native Association. We bought 5 of these. The Maritime Museum bought 5 of these 13 pieces with money from the Kodiak Area Native Association. So these 5 pieces are in our permanent collection. And I forget which 5 of them there are. We could probably sort through it. But we're going to have all of these 11 pieces on display for about a month at the brewery over on one side. I got to work with Ben and Cash to get something. We're going to try to rig that up by tomorrow night. So people will be able to see them outside of here. And we hope that people kind of think that it's cool. So from the Maritime Museum's point of view, we do not actually have a building, so we don't have a display space. That's all someday in the future. So these are the beginnings of things that will be someday displayed in a dedicated museum building. But for now, we're exhibiting them in the brewery, which seems appropriate.
And so if you get working on your art show now, by the time they get a museum, you'll be able to get it in there. Thank you so much. I am so excited to see all of you here. Yes. I don't know, but I do know when she was working on lower unit, the Scandi Rose had gone down. And so she was thinking pretty hard about those guys when she was working on that one. I think it was lower unit. It might have been extra tough, but I think it was lower unit. And she wanted y'all to know that. I'd forgotten to mention that. And like I said earlier, just like working with your hands to pull things through. Did people in Homer not get to fish during the spill? Because I know people in Kodiak did not.
I think Kodiak is the only place in the state that did not fish.
Yeah.
They fished. They fished because the spill, the oil went to the west, and they fished on
Yeah.
Copper River Basin to the east. There were closures, I think, but I think there was oil in Cook Inlet, and I think the seiners has some issues, but they still fished.
There was hatchery recovery.
Yeah. Yeah. And I want to also just say thank you so much to Patrick for supporting the event and tirelessly making all the AVs seamless. Appreciate you. You're so welcome. I had a blast. It's really fun. Super fun.
I'm going to wait.
We're no longer.
Oh, yeah.
We're doing.
I'll be